Good afternoon. I'm Shannon Williams, CEO of the Home Furnishings Association. In today's webinar, we're going to be talking about driving sales with sustainable home furnishings. And some of what we're hoping to take away from today is really understanding the rising consumer demand for sustainable furniture, looking and identifying the key considerations for sourcing eco-friendly products, and then some strategies that you guys can take away for marketing and promoting sustainable furnishing lines. As a reminder, these webinars are recorded and they are available on demand at myhfa.org/webinar. If you have any questions during the webinar, please just throw them down at the chat. The Q&A button is available and we will get to as many questions as time allows. And thank you to Synchrony, who is our education thought leadership sponsor that makes these webinars possible. Before we jump into the really good information that's going to come out of today's webinar, I'd like to introduce our panelists. First, we have Emily McGarvey, who is the Director of Sustainability for Room and Board. Emily is their Room and Board is a top 100 member, and since its beginning back in 1980, sustainable practices have been fundamental to Room and Board. They aspire to be the sustainability leader that positively impacts society and the world. And Room and Board is actually purchasing 85% of their sustainability sourced wood, and they're looking to get to 100% by 2025. They're committed to designing and sourcing products more sustainably through improved materials and practices. We also have Scarlett Tapp, who is the Executive Director of Sustainable Furnishings Council. And the Sustainable Furnishings Council is the premier sustainability resource for home furnishings industry, providing suppliers, manufacturers, retailers, and designers with the tools, education, and information needed to enhance transparency and reduce environmental and health impacts. The Sustainable Furnishings Council envisions a world where home furnishings are created, sold, and delivered without harming the environment or human health. And we'll talk about a little bit more about the Sustainable Furnishings Council a little bit later. We apologize that Katie Smith was not able to join us for today. She's not feeling well. So Katie, if you're watching or listening, we wish you the best and hope you're feeling better. So let's dive right into today's webinar. So let's start by talking a little bit more about consumer demand and really understanding the rising consumer demand for sustainable furniture. Emily, if you could actually start with this, how have you seen consumer demand for sustainable home furnishings evolve in the recent years?
Yeah, Shannon, we've definitely seen a rise in consumer demand for sustainability. And I would say there are qualitative and then quantitative signs where we're seeing it. So on the qualitative side of things, we're seeing it through like what I would say is questions and kudos, right? We're getting a lot of questions from our customers about materials and chemicals and things like that. And then we're also getting a lot of kudos from our customers. So when we announced our B Corp certification, we're seeing a lot of emails and in social media, just a lot of people giving us kudos for that work. So we're seeing that. But the quantitative side is really awesome. So we're able to look at people that are looking at our website and then whether or not they go on to purchase after seeing our sustainability pages. So we're seeing influence sales from people that have looked at our website and then gone on to purchase. And that's increasing our customer count as well as our average order value. So we see a direct tie back to business. And we're seeing that increase over time.
That's great. Scarlett, from your standpoint, have you seen any shifts in consumer demand for sustainable furnishings?
Yes, we have. And while our stakeholders are obviously industry, we've got, retailers like Emily and Room and Board, as well as the manufacturers, suppliers, and interior designers. We do filter our message to the consumers, and whether it's through social media, especially as we promote the wood furniture scorecard, that is a grading tool for retailers to see how they're sustainably sourcing their wood products. Consumers are paying attention. We find that our retailers are using that program and that scorecard to really sell their message that they are being responsible about the world's forests. So, and then of course, there's just general furnishings consumer reporting that just shows an uptick. Like Emily said, we have kudos, but we also have this awareness, whether it's B Corp. I think that's one of the big ones that transcends from furnishings to shoes to, food products. So consumers they're doing their homework, and we hope that they'll continue, especially in the home furnishing sector.
Scarlett, on that, what are some of the key factors that you're seeing that are driving that shift toward eco-friendly furniture, specifically in the retail market?
Well, I think human health has really, we've seen that that is usually the big unifier. Of course, everyone wants to protect the environment, and there's a lot of talk of fast furniture that followed by fast fashion. So that's in the ether. But we really see this human health factor with toxins. They're learning more about the chemicals that are in the textiles and the things that we sit on and live our lives, and furnishings are very personal. So that, I think, has been a key indicator, especially post-COVID. You know, we all were in our homes and we paid attention to health markers. So we're really excited that that is trending, and that feeds into our educational process for our members.
Are you seeing the same thing, Emily?
Yeah, I would agree with Scarlett in the fact that customers and consumers are paying attention. You know, we care about what goes in, on, and around our body. So everyone is paying attention more to the food they eat, to the apparel that they wear, and also the furniture they put in their homes. And I think it's both chemicals and that human health aspect of it, as well as the materials. So what's the fabric that I'm sitting on, and where did that come from, and what chemicals might be in it? Where did the wood come from? So I think that chemicals and that material side of things is just really top of mind for customers across the board, whether it's food or whether it's furniture.
Where are where are consumers hearing and getting this information from?
I think everywhere. I mean, I think it's in the news. I think it's in social media. I think it's in the influencers. I think you see it on TV. I think it's just kind of everywhere throughout our culture. As people are thinking about health and wellness and the world, I think it's kind of coming from all areas.
It is a global message, I think, and as it translates across different industries, I think one of the beginning, obviously food, but cosmetics was a big one. It was, those are small price points, but it got consumers really thinking about what they're putting on their bodies and their skin, again, translating to the bigger ticket items and even vehicles. But now we're in that middle, we're the notch below in terms of price points. So we want furnishings to get that kind of continue on that track to get that kind of attention.
Do you think the market is better for sustainable home textiles? Maybe over traditional?
Are you, Shannon, are you referring to just the interest in consumers looking for maybe recycled fabrics, or looking for non-toxic, materials, leathers that are sustainable?
One of our attendees, we're talking about increasing sales, right? And I think it's on the mind of every single retailer today of saying, how do I increase sales right now? And one of the questions is like, why would I get into this market? Why is this better? Why is, at the end of the day, obviously there's the personal impact of caring about the impacts of sustainability. And then from a retailer perspective of, at the end of the day, it's my responsibility to make money. So why would I want to go after this market? Why is that better?
And Emily, you can speak to obviously Room and Board story, but you guys, Room and Board is such, it was in their DNA from the beginning, but we have members that are just coming online and really learning about how sustainability can be marketable, even if they just pick one line of their furnishings that they want to put and sell, whether they're retail or manufacturer. You have to start somewhere, and they're I don't want to say dipping their toes, but they're doing the research and really trying to find a way. We at Sustainable Furnishings Council, we don't want to say that you have to be all or nothing. We meet you where you are. And I think that's where consumers are too, to have those choices. If you look at some of the big global retailers, they're adding more sustainable lines because they know there is that demand out there.
Yeah, and I would agree with that as well. There is that rising consumer demand, and so that creates the business case for why you'd want to get into sustainability. But I do think that sustainability is the dessert and not necessarily the main course. It has to, and that there's no one thing that really makes someone buy something. There's the price point, there's the style, the design, if there's the size, does it fit into the room that I'm looking for? And then sustainability can sometimes act as that and one, or that kind of dessert at the end that makes you feel really good about the whole meal that you just had. It can also be the differentiator between one retailer and another retailer. And so it's kind of it's a driving factor for sure, but I do think it's almost the cherry on top. It's the dessert. And so I just say that because I don't want people to say, well, I did something sustainable, so why aren't my sales increasing? I mean, it really is the full meal that needs to appeal to the customer, and sustainability. I mean, who doesn't want dessert, right? Like that can be that tipping point that really makes the sale in the end.
I love that. One of the things you had mentioned was around competition. How do you think retailers can capitalize on the demand while staying competitive?
I think there's a floor and there's a ceiling when it comes to sustainability. So the floor is, what is everybody else doing? I need to do what everyone else is doing or I'm going to be left behind, right? It's the old adage of you don't have to run fastest, you just have to run faster than the person next to you so the bear doesn't eat you. Like that's kind of the floor. Like what is everyone else doing out there that you need to do too to stay competitive? But then what's the ceiling? What's your differentiator? What are you going to do better than other people or different than other people that's going to make you stand out and really give you a competitive edge?
That's fair. What have you seen? Like, I mean, obviously this has been a growing trend of consumers seeking, a more eco-conscious solution. How influenced is the consumer market? Like, what have you seen from the growth end?
How influenced the consumer market is.
Yeah.
I think, sustainability is incredibly personal. I think it is different for everyone and it's growing at different rates. I would say that we're seeing sustainability grow within our consumer base, but it could be different for every retailer and what their consumer base is looking for. But in general, I don't see sustainability decreasing anywhere. I only see it increasing across all stages of life and all income levels and things like that.
Yeah, and to piggyback on that, at Sustainable Furnishings Council, we look at sustainability for furnishings in a holistic way where we look at we call them the sustainability six, where we look at 6 areas, whether it's your carbon, your health that we talked about, even social best practices, waste management, water, and circularity, which is all of those are really equally important. And some companies may focus on, circularity, whether it's, like Cherish or something, where you're exchanging timeless pieces. Others, consumers are drawn to companies that do good and give back and treat their workers well. That's social practices. So there are lots of ways to appeal to the consumers in your communities or nationwide or globally, but you have to start somewhere. And that's why we look at all 6, just to say, let's celebrate what you are doing, because a lot of retailers and manufacturers don't realize they're already doing some really great sustainable things, whether it's LED light bulbs and the stores or like I said, corporate social responsibility. Those are good examples as well.
That's great. Emily, something that you mentioned a little bit ago was around income demographics. How does the consumer demand vary across different demographics, like age or region or income?
So I think it will be different as you look at the different demographics. So I think the younger generation is more inclined to want to look for that sustainability piece of things. So I think that age is a big factor. Region and income, I think those can be factors, but I think there's a little bit more leeway. Although I think the higher income you may lean a little bit more towards sustainability. But one thing I think that's pretty interesting with the younger generation is Room and Board was founded in 1980. And so we're starting to have second generation customers. So people that had a Room and Board piece in their home as they were growing up, and then their parents have maybe given that to them and they still have it. And now they're coming back to us saying, I have this amazing Room and Board piece in my home and it was kind of gifted from my parents and I want to add to my collection. And so, we're seeing some of people that have grown up and see the durability and see the sustainability and they want more of that. And so for me, I think age is one of the biggest factors, but I don't want to say that maybe some folks in the older generation aren't thinking about this, but there is a generational impact that can come from sustainability as well.
Is that like the Gen Z buyer, the millennial buyer?
Yep, absolutely.
Scarlett, What do you think some of the misconceptions are, or are there any misconceptions amongst consumers about sustainability that retailers should be aware of?
Well, I think it goes to, we've all been, the term greenwashing, I'm sure your audience here is familiar with. You have to be careful because it happened with food, when the marketing of all natural or all whatever, almost organic, however they're doing it, consumers are getting savvy and they need to continue to do their homework. And we really propose, we're supporters of third-party certifications. So whether it is B Corp, just using the example of room and board, that can give consumers a really good, they can feel good and know that there was a vetting process, there was certifications that these retailers went through, because you need to be careful. And I'm going to use this too. If you're a member of SFC, we have not certified you. We are just a council that provides tools and resources. But being affiliated with SFC does come with the onus is on our members to be transparent about what they're doing and about their goals and setting goals. That's where we want to be. So, it's a lot for consumers to do. Again, the homework has to be done, but I think it's really up to us to educate them about whether it's those third-party certifications or things that you're doing, and being transparent on your website and in your marketing materials. I think that's key.
You mentioned the term greenwashing. For people that aren't aware, or retailers that aren't aware, can you explain a little bit about what
Yes.
greenwashing is?
So greenwashing is when you intimate in a marketing way that you are more sustainable than you are or aren't at all. And so you have to really be careful. All natural, Emily, I know you can speak to this as well, because it's something we face, and I'm sure as truly sustainable companies, they have to worry because that it gets, the swirling of the message gets out there in the ether, and we have to kind of clean that up for the consumer a lot of times. But the greenwashing is just, it's bad marketing practice, and the EU is cracking down on it. So it's
Yes.
unfortunately here we have to self-police. But Emily,
Yeah, and I agree that there is a lot of self-policing, which is what causes some of the problems and some of the misconceptions for consumers. Back to your question, Shannon, there are the FTC green guides that give kind of the guidelines, but it's no different than a food company claiming something is low sodium and then it's actually not low sodium. Like, if you're going to make a claim, it has to be accurate. And so that's really important, because sustainability is such a broad topic, from social to environmental issues to animal welfare. I mean, it's so many different topics, and it can mean different things to different people. And without really strict guidance on and definitions about what each word means, I think there's been lawsuits in the food world over the word natural, right? And so when you're trying to describe what you mean, it's really important, like Scarlett said, to be, to be transparent, and then to be clear and concise about what you mean when you use words, because we are a little bit in the Wild West of what definitions are and what things mean to people. So I think trying to be as clear and as simple as possible is really helpful for consumers, so that they understand what you mean, and that you aren't then accidentally overpromising something, to the greenwashing point as well. So I hope people aren't trying to greenwash on purpose, but it can happen just in simply not being clear.
Yeah, that makes total sense. Emily, would you suggest, like, beyond what Scarlett had mentioned around misconceptions, do you think there's any other consumer misconceptions about sustainability?
I'm sure there are, just simply because sustainability is such a broad topic and people have such personal feelings towards sustainability. I think misconceptions can happen, and I think that's why it's important for retailers to be so clear and concise about what they mean when they're using words or when they're describing their product.
That's fair. Scarlett, you had mentioned earlier that there's 6 areas to sustainability. I know today we're really talking about product, but can you dive into just the can you talk about the 6 and then just give a little bit of overview of the impact to retailers, or retailers should be considering?
Sure. So carbon is obviously a big one that addresses, when I spoke about the wood furniture scorecard, again, not a certification of any kind, but a scorecard that we do partnership with the National Wildlife Federation, that addresses deforestation. So the goal of that is to say, if you're going to source wood, make sure whether it's reclaimed or urban wood, like a lot of wood. Emily, you guys have led for us on a webinar about that practice, which is a wonderful source of sustainable wood, or making sure that the forest has a certification like FSC or SFI. So you're not messing up your carbon footprint, and then also having shipping considerations and those sorts of things. Sourcing as locally as you can so that you're not transporting wood overseas to have it produced maybe, and that that is probably the most tedious topic because it's a lot of science and it's a lot of calculations. But we also talk about health practices, obviously reducing VOCs and PFAS, getting PFAS out of things, which is really a state by state. In the United States, we don't have those regulations federally, but we are trying to self-police and self-educate our industry to quit using those harmful toxins in their, whether it's the finishes or in the textiles. The social best practices, paying fair wages to your workers, whether domestically or abroad. Also being a good corporate citizen, giving back to your community in whatever way that can be. Water best practices, especially with textiles, it can be, water intensive. How are you managing that water? Are you recycling your water waste? What systems do you have in place? Then of course, waste is huge with furnishings, as we know, when it gets shipped and we have all the lovely styrofoam and all of that, looking at alternative shipping products and things like that, which are really coming on to the scene, and that's great. And then circularity, like Emily said, this piece that, someone gets passed down a legacy piece, an heirloom piece that stands the test of time, that wasn't made unsustainably with bad finishes, keeping those or reupholstering, those sorts of things. So those are really some of the top ways that you could just look at that, whether you put that in your online or, brick and mortar store, look at those considerations.
That's great. Emily, can you talk about some best practices, shifting base, talking a little bit more about how we go about sourcing eco-friendly products? Can you share a little bit more on the best practice side for finding reliable and ethical suppliers with eco-friendly products?
Yeah, absolutely. So at Room and Board, 90% of our products are manufactured here in the United States. And so we also have really long partnerships with the people that we've worked with. So we've been around for 44 years, and some of our vendor partners have been with us that entire time. So we start by having true partnerships with our vendor partners, because we're a retailer and we work with vendors as third-party manufacturers to manufacture most of our product or all of our product. And then 98% of our product is under the Room and Board label. So I just explain that to sometimes it gets confusing of a retailer manufacturer and the differences. But when we work with our vendor partners, we're looking to create long-term partnerships. And so we spend a good amount of time talking about our values as businesses, and we're looking for vendors that are running their business in the same way that we're running our business. And as a B Corp certified company, we're really focused on our staff and our customers and the environment and community. And so we're looking for people that are doing that as well. So when we have vendor partners that are aligned on how they operate their business and the values that they have, then some of these conversations are more about where are we going next and why, and truly taking them as a partner to say, why are we doing something? So for us, it's not necessarily looking for an eco-friendly vendor. It's really working with our current vendors and saying, we're looking for sustainably sourced wood here in the US and Canada. We're looking for all of our foam to be, CertiPure US certified. We're looking for more of our fabrics to be Green Guard Gold certified, and explaining why we want that. And so partnering with like 3 of our US mills that we have for upholstery fabrics, we went from 20% of our fabrics being Green Guard Gold certified to 70% of our fabrics being Green Gold Guard certified in about a year and a half. And that was because of that partnership. And so really being able to partner with vendors and explain the why, then they can turn around to their supply chains and say, okay, we're looking to change things. We understand why. How do we do this in the most cost-effective way? What can we do? What can we not do? And those open lines of communication and that partnership and that trust can start to shift on the materials and on the certifications.
Thank you. Scarlett, are there any other things that retailers should be thinking about when they're looking for and finding reliability and ethics
Right.
around.
Well, I think Emily gave the great example of, and I just listening to you speak about that, Emily, the power really is in the retailers as well as designers, the specifiers that are really the conduit to push the manufacturers to provide the best products that are hopefully certified. We do believe, like I said, in the certifications, whether it's for textiles or wood or foam, but using that to really help push, and then that's how you educate the consumer. That's how the whole circle can go around. So we really value the voice of the retailers, which is why we promote, like with wood furnishings, the wood furniture scorecard. The reason it was designed 7 years ago to be really for retailers is because we knew they had the power to change vendors or to push their vendors, and we're seeing that trend in the last couple of years. So it's that push-pull consumer, but you guys are really at that nexus. So it's we celebrate that. But yeah, other than that, other than being familiar with the types of certifications that are out there and just learning more about their product. I mean, furnishings, there are a lot of components to make a piece of furniture, right? So it's really doing homework on all the ends and being responsible and sharing that story, because storytelling is a big part of that.
You guys have both mentioned certifications and labeling. Can you talk a little bit more about how certifications and labeling help in sourcing and selling sustainable furniture?
Yeah, I think it's helpful to create transparency and trust. So when you're putting a product claim on a label or a certification on a label, and you're saying something about a product, it's really communicating those positive attributes. And then obviously, we talked about the greenwashing. We need to have all the documentation to back up that product claim. But whether it's a product claim on a label or a certification, that really just helps the trust and transparency and tells you why that product has some dessert that goes with the main course.
Something that you had just recently mentioned, Scarlett, was about you mentioned the push and pull, with the manufacturer. How does a small retailer feel like they have some power with that manufacturer if they're not maybe doing volume?
Well, I mean, I think as terms of volume, like when we look at our retailers, we have large retailers, and then we have some that are just e-commerce. But having the power, I think it's in communicating your values and also knowing your customer base and making that connection to your vendor, and so that they understand the demand is out there. This is what they're looking for, and they need to get on board. So, so it does put the retailers in a unique position, and a smaller one too, but there are so many vendors out there that even for the smaller retailers that don't do that volume, they can still get good price points, for their wholesale prices. And we've seen the success. I mean, with the wood furniture scorecard, I can tell you this: the top scores, one was, a retailer under $500,000, and one is, 30 million. So, but the practices are the same, whether it's big or small. Obviously volume gets you get a bigger voice and seat at the table, but the manufacturers are out there that can fill that.
Coming back to that question about certification, can you talk a little bit more about Sustainable Furnishings Council's role in certification and the resources that you guys provide to help retailers?
So we try to be an educator of the types of certifications out there. We've been doing a series. We did one on B Corp. We've done some on FSC. We're looking at doing some on Ecotex and Green Guard and all of those to educate so that our members and our stakeholders understand the value of them. But we, obviously we're not a certifier, but something we are excited about. We did develop a tool that is only for members. Unfortunately, we would love to make it for everyone, but it is a self-assessment tool. It's 76 questions divided among those 6 categories that I listed before, from carbon, health, water, social, and so forth. But it is a tool because self-assessment tools are the beginning. That's where you start. You know, if you're not sure about the certification, well, take your own temperature, take the test, see where you land, see what your strengths are, see what your challenges are. I know with B Corp, Emily, you could speak to that. I remember you were telling our attendees about, you know, you can do that self-assessment even with them, because that is where this world of sustainability is going. They're going to have to be able to answer those hard questions and be transparent about them. But
well, yeah, and what Scarlett's referring to is through the B Corp certification, there's a couple different steps, but one of them is taking B Lab's impact assessment, and B Lab is the nonprofit that administers the certification. But there's probably like 200 questions, and it's basically looking at all aspects of your business. And it's like, what does best in class business do for customers, for community, for environment, for supply chain, all these different areas. And it's actually free. So anybody can log on to their website and, you know, put in their email and password and basically use that as kind of a benchmark to say, well, where are we at with diversity, equity, and inclusion? Where are we at with sustainable sourcing? And so it's a really great guide. Even if you have no intention of getting the B Corp certification, it can still be a tool that people can kind of, you know, take their temperature and see, you know, how they're stacking up.
What role, I've heard you guys throw the term out, sustainability and supply chain and sustainable sourcing. So like, what role does transparency in the supply chain play in sustainable sourcing?
It's huge, because you can't change what you can't see, right? And so in a really opaque supply chain where you don't know what chemicals are in your product, or you don't know where your cotton came from or where your wood came from, you can't know if there's something that you could do better if you don't even know where you're at. And so there's transparency in sourcing B2B, you know, from a retailer to a manufacturer, the manufacturer, you know, back to their suppliers. So there's that level of transparency, which is, I think, where most people start. And then you also have the transparency to the consumer. So there's that retailer to consumer transparency that also becomes important, you know, and then you're into the marketing side of things, and it's, you know, it's external communication. And that's where product claims on labels and certifications start to communicate. So you're going to have a much you know, deeper conversation between retailers and the supply chain going backwards than you maybe will with your consumers, where you're trying to communicate on packaging or on a website. But that transparency is kind of the start of the conversation. So if you don't have transparency, you don't even necessarily know, you know, what you're talking about. So I think transparency is huge when it comes to sustainable sourcing.
yeah, and Shannon, we years ago started a program. It was really more of an awareness program called "What's It Made Of?" Really, just ask the question. We do that in concert with the American Sustainable Business Network, the Center for Environmental Health, and Parsons Healthy Material Lab. And what it is educating our stakeholders to understand. We've narrowed it down to the hazardous handful, which includes the VOCs, flame retardants, antimicrobials, and so forth. But it's really about digging into your supply chain. We giving a conversation starter with meat on it to say, hey, what are you doing? And really going, like Emily said, go down that supply chain so that you can get that back. Auditing. A couple of really great tools that we have done webinars with. One is called ToxNot, and it is a supply chain platform that you can dig into and see where, you know, what chemicals are in what certain components for the furnishings, as well as the social labor convergence. Get them all the SFC, FSC, you know, all the letters, but they monitor, you know, factories and how they're, you know, dealing with their workers. And it's basically a big database where you can start digging in the supply chain that way. So there are lots of tools out there.
You both have mentioned that you know, you can't change what you can't see. Transparency being a really big challenge with obviously many solutions and resources. What other challenges, what are the bigger challenges that you guys see when sourcing sustainable materials for home furnishings?
Well, it depends on what it might be. So I think, like, from a packaging standpoint, I think we have most of the solutions. It's just kind of implementing more eco-friendly solutions, just kind of getting away from styrofoam, getting away from plastic as much as possible, you know. So I think those solutions are just a matter of implementation. But then you also have other issues around, a lot of our upholstery fabric is petroleum based, right? Polyester is great for durability. So do we have solutions that are out there? Are there more natural fibers that give us the performance that we need? And so there's some of the challenges are we don't have an answer yet. And so how do you either work together, work with your vendor partners? How do you work on those innovative materials that we'll need for the future? And so it's kind of figuring out what that challenge is and what that puzzle is, and then who are your partners that can help you figure that out.
How should a retailer be thinking about this? Like, you mentioned things like styrofoam, right? And I think everyone's a little bit competitive against the Wayfairs or the Amazons. And if you order something online, it's coming completely in, as a RTA, but you would assemble, but completely wrapped in styrofoam. And so if we're talking about, Emily, you mentioned the floor, what's everyone else doing to stay competitive? How should a retailer even be considering this where they think, okay, yeah, that makes sense. I can do that, but that's not really the bar today. So, what should a retailer be thinking about and doing when the bar is not that?
Well, I think that's where sometimes the strategy of sustainability and the materiality of sustainability comes into play. Like, what is most material to your business, and use that as a way to figure out how to prioritize what you should be working on and where you want to really raise the bar for your own company. So I do think that from a customer standpoint, chemicals and materials really rise to the top because that's something that they see, they know affects them. And so I think it's a little bit of a low-hanging fruit to start with the chemicals and the materials side of things, but to really dig into your business and do materiality, that's something that is a little bit deeper. Some people may not quite be there yet.
Thank you. There was a tool, the question that came in, there was a tools that were mentioned to take a quiz to see how the company stacks up. Can you remind me what the reminder, like the people watching, what's the tool that they can take the assessment at to see how your company stacks up?
It's so B Lab is the name of the nonprofit. And if you're looking at their certification process, they have something called an impact assessment tool. And so that impact assessment tool is where you can sign up with an email and a password and then get in to be able to start answering some questions and looking at some different areas of your business.
And then
yeah, for if you are a member of SFC, you will be given your access to your dashboard, and the questions are lined up under those 6 categories, and you can take it as many times as you want. Again, that does not get published in the directory or anything. It is really for you to be able to just see where you're, oh, I'm great in carbon, but I could do better with my waste product or that sort of thing. And then it's setting those public targets. And I know that's hard to do because then you're committing yourself, but even saying by X year, we would love to be styrofoam free or whatever, like Emily said, you have to pick, where you want to go with that. But there's nothing wrong with having an educated target set, not just some dream that we all want to be 100% sustainable, but something that you can back it up. And Emily, something you spoke about with the B Corp certification is also just having a small committee within your company that really can start looking at the different facets of sustainability and what you can prioritize, what's the low-hanging fruit for your company, and then what could be the next challenge to take on.
And I'm very lucky that even before I started, 2 or 3 years ago, Room and Board already had their sustainability change agents, kind of a green team, so to speak. But I think that brings up a really great point, Scarlett, of just like needing community. It isn't something that one person is going to do. And I think that's one of the great benefits of the Sustainable Furnishings Council is that, that community that you join and be able to meet other people that are doing similar work as you and be able to answer questions and ask questions. And so that community aspect, I think, is huge, whether you find it in your company with change agents or a green team, or whether you find it outside of your company, like a great organization like SFC.
Perfect. So let's shift one more time and talk a little bit more about what the juice is right here, talking about more the marketing and promoting to really increase sales. So Emily, what kind of marketing strategies has Room and Board found the most effective in promoting sustainable home furnishings?
So we've kind of taken two tactics. One is kind of talking about the whole company, and that's where like the B Corp certification is a great way to share our story and kind of sharing people with like what we're doing. And I think, which is great. I think that's super important. I think the most effective marketing for selling sustainable products is to have the product as the hero. So we usually, most companies, every single product may not have some sustainable attribute, but they may have some products that are kind of sustainability heroes. And so being able to lift up, a collection or a line or a couple products that really have those sustainability attributes that you can make product claims on and stand behind, like really lifting those up within marketing and highlighting that product as the hero, we've found that to be really successful to drive sales for those products.
Now, are you doing that for Room and Board as a whole and that reaches every consumer? You had mentioned earlier that you're seeing a shift on that younger and having a different demographic on that younger consumer. Do you differentiate your strategy, or is this just the Room and Board strategy?
That's a great question. I think I know the answer, being on the marketing team, but I think we are sharing, like from a social media perspective, we're obviously sharing kind of across all of our channels and anyone that's opted into those. And then from an email perspective too, I do believe we're sharing that with all customers. We aren't necessarily slicing for what we would, I don't think we have a sustainable customer that we're sending specific messages to. We're really sending that across the board.
And I would just like to also add, though, Emily, like you said, make the furniture the hero. That really goes to the storytelling aspect of the piece of furniture, right? Every consumer, I mean, anytime any of us have bought even one thing that, is sustainable and you're proud of, and the story, oh, this wood came from an old barn or what, we all have those stories as consumers, but that's that feel-good factor that they can then tell the story when they're showing their furniture to their family and friends. That's another sort of viral way that you can have that consumer awareness. So
I would also say, if you are promoting a sustainability hero, remember it's still the dessert. Like your marketing should still be, highlighting the style and the price and these other things. So it's not like you want to just market and all you're going to share with them is the sustainability story. Like, you wouldn't ever just market that a sofa is red and not tell them anything else about it. If you can share that sustainability story, but it should be the full meal. It shouldn't just be the dessert. I may be overusing this analogy at this
I
point.
love it because you sell the design, the feel, everything, and then you go, and guess what? It's sustainable.
Exactly.
Now you can really feel good about the purchase.
Right. And I mean, our off-camera conversation started with cookies. Yes, we were talking about internet cookies, but also, this is just, it's all relevant, right? So,
exactly.
Staying on this conversation just around marketing, I know that Room and Board is looking at social, uses social media but doesn't differentiate, their demographics. Scarlett, have you seen anything with other retailers that are there specific marketing channels that work better for promoting eco products? Like, how did the retailer use storytelling as their sustainable marketing efforts?
Yeah, I think we see Instagram again. It's photo, it's design oriented, it's quick. We really see that has a huge impact. So I would say definitely that. LinkedIn, of course, that's going to be more B2B, and we do see a lot that trickles down, but really direct to the consumer. I would say that. And just also, we have something that anyone can use and take, and make their own, but it's like a quick shopping guide. Use those shopping holidays to remind your customer base, hey, look for this, and this. Don't just go because it's the president's birthday and go buy whatever, you know what I mean? Make it connected to being a responsible shopper, and we can provide that, fill those needs that you're looking for.
Go ahead, Emily.
I was going to say, just along that same line, I worked with my marketing team recently, and we went through some of our Room and Board blogs, and what we did is we added in the sustainability elements to that. So if you're looking for, an amazing dining table, what should you be looking for? We kind of made sure that we had added in all the sustainability elements to that as well. And I think that's a really good point, Scarlett, of just how do we share all that information together.
Let's stay on this topic because this was a question that came in. Some retailers want to know what the best way to showcase sustainable furnishing vendors to your customer. And, in a case like Room and Board, where it's part of your brand, how about for a furniture retailer where this isn't, but maybe it's a product lineup or a piece of it? What's the best way to go to market with a particular line or, a showcase of sustainable, furnishing products?
I think an easy way to dip your toe in is within your website, right? That's something that can be easily changed and updated. So kind of figuring out what's the right hierarchy of information, what are the right words that resonate with people. I think just the product description on the website can be an easy, low cost way to start to share some of that information and then be able to see the reaction from customers.
I love that suggestion because I know that so much of the conversation right now is about inventory turn and cash flow. And it is really such a simple way to, to maybe diversify your brand a little bit, drive traffic through, SEO on a brand and test something before going, all in on test, and on being your product line.
Exactly. And and the web people know this better than I do, but just in terms of what pops on the first page when you first come to someone's website, it's not only just finding information on the product page, but what are you directing people towards? What are you sharing in some of your email marketing? Like how you communicate and how you market and what you choose to market can help to start to share that sustainability story of what you are doing and really kind of share it through the product as the hero.
There's a question that came. Oh, go ahead, Scarlett.
I was just going to say, and I want to stay upbeat about that, but I know that we have heard from different retailers. Sometimes there's a concern that, oh, well, if I focus on the sustainable product, then the rest of my stuff, what am I saying about that? But it's really about options and giving your consumers the full breadth of what you can offer. Even if it's on the showroom floor, it could be in its own, little sustainable corner, but it doesn't mean it's a delicate balance. And that's where you get the marketing expertise that you hopefully have on your team that can, sell the good message and just know that these are, good, better, best, right? All the options.
One of the questions that just came in was, what about stone? What are you recommending be used over stone from queries that are far away?
That is a great question. I don't know if I have an answer for that. We don't use a whole lot of stone. So that might be something we have to dig into and get back to that person.
Yeah. I mean, I know there, obviously with some of which is more about home building, with some of the countertops, there, have been issues with the cutting of the stone and different things like that. You don't want, obviously, we think about workers' health and we think about the holistic approach. So how was that, material, mined, managed, milled, however, quarried? So you want to think about that.
When we talk about that, we talked about the supply chain and looking at for transparency in the supply chain. We've talked about, where you're getting your product, how you're marketing it. How do we design, how does the furniture industry design an ecosystem where sustainability and the circular economy benefit everybody involved down to the consumer?
I think that's really in the design from the beginning. So how are you designing for durability so that it lasts a long time? How are you designing for repair? How are you designing for end of life? All those pieces to kind of add value to the customer as a piece of furniture it kind of goes through its life. But eventually, even if it's 20, 30, 40 years from now, furniture will have an end of life. And so then it's really about how do you disassemble that furniture and then recycle those resources to be used again? And we don't have answers to all of that quite yet. I think we as a furniture industry have the infrastructure set up for mattresses. We have that infrastructure set up because there have been extended producer responsibility laws in certain states that have kind of forced that to happen. So it'll be interesting to see as we move along into the future, will it be, customer demand for circularity that will drive some of the innovations and the movement? Will it be, business feeling responsible and their corporate citizenship of doing that, or will it be regulation that will start to, move on some of that as well? So the circularity piece is hugely important because of how much furniture ends up in landfill every year and just the carbon footprint of the waste of furniture. But we're kind of in the infancy of that, and it's something where the industry is going to have to come together to work on that and to figure out how do we set up the infrastructure to manage that piece. And you're seeing the apparel and textile industry start to move a little bit faster on this, where I think Europe has like 4 or 5 textile recycling facilities across the EU right now. And then in the US, we're starting to see more recycling pilots and things like that. And even a couple pilots for textiles curbside at people's houses. So we're starting to see that recycling infrastructure come into place. But it's furniture is big and has a lot of parts and pieces, as Scarlett said earlier. So it's complex. But the fact that we figured it out for mattresses makes me think we can figure it out for upholstered and for wood furniture as well. But it's going to take an effort, and it's going to take an industry effort.
Yeah, and to that point, Emily, like a lot of the new furniture manufacturers are really they're going to school to learn how to design sustainably. So they're learning about design for disassembly, like you said, replace parts, end of life, using products that if they end up in a landfill, they're not going to be toxic and go into the waste stream and, poison us in our water and soil. So I think there's that. And this is sort of, it's anecdotal, but it's true as we compare fashion to furniture. When you as a consumer go to donate your fashion and there is no more room at the inn and they can't take it, and no country wants all of those textiles, they don't see it with furnishings because not many of us go hang out in the landfill. But I'm always like, take somebody to a landfill, because when you see the fast furniture just thrown away, there's something very visceral that communicates that message that we all just need to conserve. And it starts at the beginning in the design of the furniture.
I'm feeling a field trip to a landfill.
Roll the windows down. It makes all the difference.
Yeah, one of the viewers. Oh, go ahead, Emily.
I hope I have the stat right, but I think the EPA says that there's 12 million tons of furniture going into landfill every year. That's a lot. And that's as we are all in the furniture industry, we have a responsibility in that as well. Once we sell our furniture to the customer, we still do have a responsibility in some way to make it easier for them to know what to do with their furniture at its end of life.
One of the attendees was interesting, some data. So do you have any data that corresponds to the demand for sustainable furniture compared to fast furniture?
Great question. Sarah, do you know of any data?
Well, I know Home News Now, they ran in the last year some consumer reporting, and I pulled some stats before because I wanted to check that. And it says that, there is obviously income levels do affect that, but that 57% of surveyed individuals from this particular survey were looking at sustainability as one of their buying decision factors. So, and they're also really drawn to recycled materials, bamboo, and wood that they know is sustainably sourced, and real hardwood, not manufactured board. So yeah.
The other thing I think we've been seeing too from younger customers is the durability factor of wanting to buy something that will last. And room and boards furniture is very durable, so I think that maybe that's why we are hearing it more from our customer base. But when we hear younger people talking about sustainability and what's drawing them to the product, that durability factor is coming up more and more.
So that brings us to a really good final question around price. And I think that there's this orthodoxy that exists that says sustainable furnishings is expensive. Can you speak to pricing differences between, fast furniture and sustainable furniture? And then how do you convey that full worth of sustainable product to your consumer?
So we talk a lot about value. So what is the value of the furniture that we're offering people? If a piece of furniture breaks after 5 years, that doesn't seem like a very good value because now you need to go out and buy a second piece of furniture. So we look at the value, which includes cost, but it also includes the durability. We also talk a lot about timeless style. So we don't want our products going out of fashion. So we want our products to last for a long time and also still not be trendy, but still have that timeless modern design. And so all those things really lean into the value of a product.
All right, before we close up for today's webinar, is there anything else we haven't talked about that we should be addressing or that you guys would like to add?
I would just add that if people are interested in sustainability, if they're curious about doing something, it's not an all or nothing. It's kind of one of those pick one thing, pick something that maybe seems easy or something you're already halfway doing and just try it and just give it a go. I think you kind of have, it's one of the things about sustainability is that it is new. And so sometimes I think it's just human nature that if it's something you've never done before, it can maybe be a little intimidating. And so just taking that first step and finding success with that, I think is huge.
And I would say also, as you reach those successes, wherever you start, share them with your peers. That is the beauty of the network and the community, where we all share, our member companies share their success stories and what they've tried and what has worked and maybe what hasn't. I would also point people to our website. There are some downloadable PDFs. There's a circular design glossary that's a 40+ terms with companies that have participated in that could get us all on the same page with jargon and vocabulary. So we're not, so we know what we're talking about. Quick buying guides. And we even have a new roadmap for designers, which can also be for retailers because it's the specifiers of furniture that is going to bring it to the consumer. So anyone can download those, and we just invite you to get on our website and use those tools.
That's a great call out. So I'd like to recap just a few things that we talked about today. So one is there's ways to measure this. There's quantitative and qualitative ways to measure this. On the quantitative end, there's increased sales, there's average lifetime value, there's increased average tickets. Being cognizant and careful about greenwashing. Consumers are extremely savvy. So if you're going to make a claim, it has to be accurate. But you can't fix what you can't see. So become transparent and look into that supply chain to see what's going on. If you don't know where to start, it's not all or nothing. Don't be intimidated. Start with a self-assessment. You can get that through B Lab. You can get that through the Sustainable Furnishings Council, but just start with wherever you are. It doesn't have to be a completely new initiative. Start with where you are, take a step, and you can actually dip your toe into the waters without a ton of investment, but trying something new. And then whenever you're marketing sustainably, really consider the furniture as the hero. And, maybe veering away from about the price of the sale and looking more at the value and the replacement life and the benefits that come from that. Did I nail those today?
I think you nailed it. Nice job.
Great.
Thank you so much. Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I really appreciate you guys. Scarlett from the Sustainable Furnishings Council and Emily from Room and Board. Thank you guys both for joining me. You can recap and actually see this online at myhfa.org. If you'd like to recap this video, or if you have some questions, feel free to reach out to us at info@myhfa.org, and we'll get you connected with Scarlett and Emily and answer any of those specific questions. Or for the person that asked about stone, feel free to follow up, and we could see if we can get you some additional resources. But I think the biggest takeaway, we have a phenomenal resource in this industry. It's the Sustainable Furnishings Council. Go to their website. This is the work they do all day, every day, and they are here. They are 501c3. They're here to help you create a more sustainable environment and help us move away from this idea of fast furniture and really make a difference on the environment. So thank you all for participating today. Thank you for watching. And again, thank you to Synchrony, who is our sponsor for our webinars. I hope everyone has a great weekend, and we will see you at our next webinar.